Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be starting in a few minutes, but it's exciting to see so many of you here with us already.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. I know it is just 1 o'clock right now. We're going to give just 1 or 2 more minutes for folks to join. There's about roughly half of the folks who registered have joined. So we'll wait just a couple more minutes and then we'll jump right in. Thanks for your patience. Okay, well, I see that people are still joining. We're going to go ahead and get started with some introductions, and just want to briefly welcome you all to the webinar. We're focusing on the child welfare requirements for CANS training, certification, and entry of CANS data into the CARES Live system. And we've got a full agenda and a panel of presenters to share some information with you today. We did, because of the number of participants, we have muted everyone's line. But I did want to let you know that there is a Q&A section that you should be able to access. For me, the button's in the bottom right of my screen. And we are monitoring questions. So we'll do our best to address those questions as they are coming in. Some things we may not be able to, though, and so we will be following up with all registered attendees to provide answers to those questions. So I think we can move along to the next slide. Thank you. All right. And appropriately, we owe a lot of thanks and gratitude for some really excellent collaboration among many partners, as you see here. So the California County Welfare Directors Association, CWDA, Chief Probation Officers of California, CPOC, all of our regional training academy partners, CalSWEC, the counties, both child welfare, juvenile probation, and behavioral health partners, child welfare digital services, our partners in research automation and data division, our RAD division at CDSS, the Office of Tribal Affairs, and Integrated Services team. And then we would be remiss if we did not give appreciation to all of the stakeholders who helped really inform the all-county letter 21-27. It went through several rounds of stakeholder review, and really, I think the finished product reflects all of your input and thoughtful contributions. So thank you very much to everyone for those collaborative efforts. Okay, we can move to the next slide. What you see here is a slide with our agenda. So we have quite a lot to cover in the time that we are together. And what we're going to start with is an overview of the all-county letter, kind of at a high level. And then as you see with the agenda, we're going to dig in a little bit deeper to each of those areas that are covered in the all-county letter to give more of a flavor of what to expect and to try to answer some of the questions that we anticipate and that we've been receiving. So let's see. So joining me in that overview is Locke Nguyen with CWDA. And Locke, I just want to make sure that your microphone is open.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
Excellent.
So
right.
All-County Letter 21-27 was released on March the 12th. And it had it touched upon a number of areas, but the required CANS training and certification requirements, mandatory entry of CANS data into the CARES Live system, and it included an implementation timeline for counties. It also introduces the CFT CANS Implementation Support Kit, which is available on the CalSWIC website, which we'll show a little bit later. And to remind everyone, the CANS will now take place of the Family Strengths and Needs Assessment, the FSNA, as well as the Child's Strengths and Needs Assessment, the CSNA, in the Structured Decision Making, SDM. So we really want to make sure that there's a robust implementation because the use of CANs is really an important part of the integrated core practice model. We'll also be discussing some of the data that's available through the use of CARES Life further in this particular webinar. Lisa?
Yeah, thank you very much, Locke. And I think you really covered the components of the all-county letter very well. I think we are really excited about the release of this letter and what it does for our system as a whole, really giving us comprehensive CANS training that is been thoughtfully tailored to an integrated audience. So it's appropriate for a wide variety of stakeholders across county systems and for partners. And the intent there was really to make sure that what we're building is shared understanding and shared practice across the system of care. So I think that that is really a huge value. And then the piece around, Locke, you mentioned that CANS has replaced the two SDM tools, the FSNA and the CSNA. And I know that in some counties, you've already taken action and you have made that transition away from those two tools, FSNA and CSNA. And in some counties, you're still in process. And thinking about what that looks like for you. So I would just say that the regional training academies are thought partners to help you with that transition, as are team members from the Integrated Services Unit. If you have questions about that, please do reach out and let us know. And I've gotten a lot of questions asking for the citation of where it says that we can do that. And so ACL-21-27, page 4, specifically, there's language there, and ACL 18-81, also coincidentally on page 4. So I just wanted to give you those citations in case that is helpful as you are working through that transition. And then, you know, the biggest piece I want to convey is the what's in it for us. And by implementing the CANs in the context of the integrated core practice model, it's and in the context of the child and family teaming process, what we're doing is creating that shared language and shared approach across our systems in service of children and families, so that what children and families experience is a real unified approach of shared decision making, of shared information, of being able to tell their story once and have that information be acted upon by all of the system partners that are working to support and strengthen their family and empower them to independence. So there's really a lot of value that comes from adoption of these practices. And again, want to just thank you so much for taking the time to be part of this webinar. And I think we can move to the next slide. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the most intriguing aspects about this is that there's a lot of data that's going to be involved. So the timely entry of CANS information into the CARES Live system is going to be very important. It's paramount to both effective service coordination as well to really monitor and adapt case plans. And the data that's going to inform cross-agency outcomes can be monitored, and it will be really enhanced with timely and completed CANS data entry. Statewide, all county child welfare departments are now required to enter CANS data into the CARES Live system for all children with an open child welfare case, regardless which agency is completing the CANS. And it's based on a couple of particular time points. By or before May the 1st of 2021, in a couple of months, all entry of CANS data for children 0 to 5 with an open child welfare case will have to be done. Before or by July 1, 2021, entry of all CANs, and this is the integrated practice CANs and early childhood version, has to be completed or updated for all children and youth up to the age of 21 with an open child welfare case. So while CANs can be completed prior to the effective date or the deadline, so to speak, for those that have prior to the ACL, there has to be some collaboration with partners in working on the mechanism to provide counties with timelines and other CAN specific reports. Therefore, counties of their own accord are really encouraged to add historical CANs data for the benefit of generating accurate CANs reports as the capacity allows. And generally, CANs data and the data set will be robust if it's entered longitudinally or as on an ongoing flow basis. Lisa?
And let's see. Yeah, I think I'll just reinforce that with the CANs data and really having that robust data set, the intention is for us to be able to monitor change over time and to have a real clear understanding of whether the things that we're putting in place, whether it's at the child level, at the caseload level, at the local county system or statewide level, are really effective. One of the really powerful things about the CANs is that it is a communametric tool, meaning that it is not only an information sharing tool through communication, but by using the ratings, we're able to look at change over time. And so having this robust data set in our care system and marrying that with the data that's collected by the Department of Healthcare Services, we will be able to develop really robust reports and data dashboards that give us a lot of valuable insight into our system, helping us to see really what's effective for families, what's working, and where we might have some gaps. So it's a pretty important tool that we have access to here. Thank you. We can move to the next slide.
All right, thank you so much, Lisa and Locke. Appreciate all of that information. We now are going to be going on to CAN's training curriculum with April Fernando with the Parade Foundation in the University of Kentucky, and again with Lisa Witchy in the Integrated Practices and Resource Development Bureau. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robin. I just want to kick us off by giving a huge amount of appreciation to April and to the curriculum development team that was part of the CFT CANs implementation team. A tremendous amount of work went into developing the CANs curriculum, really making sure that it's grounded within the CFT process and really reflective of the integrated core practice model, and that it's appropriate for that wide range of audiences, because we are, we have the benefit of having this shared CANs tool with our behavioral health partners and being able to share that information with juvenile probation and contracted partners and tribes and other stakeholders. And so the curriculum really reflects that and is really a robust and comprehensive training and workforce development tool. So just want to give that appreciation before April kind of walks through an overview of what the CANs curriculum modules are about, and which module is really appropriate for which audience.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. I'm going to talk you through the different modules, and hopefully I will do it in such a way that it's crystal clear what the modules are. First, I do want to say, and this is noted in the ACL, and I had the page a minute ago and now I've lost it, that the modules are not, here it is, it's on page 6. The modules are not intended to be sequential, okay? So you do not have to take them in, all of them necessarily in a sequence. There is one exception to that, which I will talk about in just a second. So the first module is Module A. This is called the CANS Overview and Case Planning. It's a full day action-packed workshop. It is intended to help people who are going to be using the CANS information for practice and for case planning, treatment planning, action planning, whatever you want to call it. But it's not necessarily preparing individuals for certification on the tool. Okay, so it will cover all the important information you need to know about what the CANS is, how to use the information in planning and in your practice, but it will not prepare you for certification. That's Module A. The next slide. Here are the folks that are recommended to attend Module A, and we do love it when we have a diversity of people attending. It makes for much livelier discussion, and it starts us thinking about how we can all collaborate and build consensus with each other when we find ourselves in those child and family teams working with the CANS. So as much as possible, we love to have all of you there. So child welfare workers who have CANS-informed activities, mental health plan clinicians, juvenile probation staff, tribal partners and providers, supervisors who aren't overseeing case planning, and other community partners, FFAs, STRTPs, partners in the CFT, parent partners, court partners. You're all welcome to come and learn about the tool. Next slide. All right, Module B is our the longest module. It is a 2-day in-person workshop, and you do have to come to both days. It provides an overview of the tool. It goes into depth about case planning, but it also prepares folks for certification. We go over certification preparation for using the 0 to 5 items as well as the 6 and up items. So it is a pretty intense 2 days, and it is the only module that prepares individuals for CANS certification. Next slide, please. And again, you can see that these are really, this module is required and recommended for folks that are going to be responsible for completing the CANS, whether they're child welfare social workers, mental health plan clinicians, the CFT facilitators, tribal partners. We would also welcome folks who are not necessarily completing the CANS, but want to have that level of understanding and need to be certified to have that level of understanding. Supervisors who are overseeing case planning, and other identified staff. Again, this is the only module that prepares one for certification. Next slide, please. We do have a special module to support supervisors in being able to use the CANS in supervision and support their staff that they're supervising to use the CANS and also to complete the CANS. So this is a full day workshop, Module C, for those supervisors who are overseeing the CANS being used in case planning. There is a requirement for supervisors to attend either Module B, just Module B, for those who are overseeing case plan to attend Module B and Module C. So Module B will prepare you for certification, and Module C will provide you some support on how to use the CANS in supervision for case planning. Okay. So for supervisors who do get certified the first time around, it's a strong recommendation. There is not a requirement for annual recertification. That's only for supervisors. For those who are completing the CANs, there is a there is a requirement for annual recertification, and for trainers, there is a requirement for annual recertification. So it's only supervisors who do not have to be recertified on the tool. Next slide. And the final module is Module D. And this is a particular module that will probably go away soon. When we first rolled out the CANs, we had a one-day overview. And the one-day overview covered what is the CANs, what is the tool, prepared people for certification, but did not have the component that talked about how to use the CANs in case planning or treatment planning. So this module helps those folks who took the one-day overview get up to speed on treatment planning and case planning with the tool. And it is a one-day workshop that has a little bit of a review, but most of it is focused on case planning and treatment planning. So that is Module D. Next slide, please. And again, the folks that took the one-day overview back in 2018 and 2019, social workers, mental health plan clinicians, juvenile probation staff, child and family team facilitators, supervisors. If you took a overview training that did not have case planning or treatment planning, this is the module for you. Next slide, please. There you go.
Thanks, April and Lisa. I appreciate all of that information. And to everyone out there, we are receiving your questions and responding to the ones we can. The ones that we are holding some for the end of the session, so that way we can get them answered out loud, hopefully. So if we're not responding, that could be the reason why. And also if we're not responding, we will make sure to get back to you after the presentation is over with your answers, because we may need to do additional research. But thank you so much for all of the lovely questions so far. And we're going to move forward with the demo of CARES Live with Julie Clemens with the Child Welfare Digital Services.
Yay, I'm unmuted. Hi, everybody. This is Julie Clemens, and I am the CARES Live Service Manager. I'm also a Los Angeles County consultant. I've been with the LA Department of Children and Family Services for 24 years. I was a social worker for half that time and an administrator for the other half. 2.5 years ago, I joined Child Welfare Digital Services and was immediately assigned to building this CANs tool. And for some of you on the line, you'll remember that the first iteration of our CANs was a manual entry. We've come a long way in 2.5 years. I'm happy to say that this week we just passed 40,000 CANs entered into our system in the state of California. So that's very exciting. So before I go into the actual demo, I wanted to allay a couple of fears. As you are seeing on this screen in front of you here, you're seeing the email at the bottom. And that's really important because we are available on my team to give you one-on-one tutorials. We can give your staff demos. We can help you bulk load users if you don't know how to get your users connected. Our team is here to help you, so don't worry about any of the technological parts of this. So let me pull up and share my screen. Let's try that again. There we go. All right, and I'm going to move this. And so you should be seeing the CARES Live dashboard. And here we have the cans. So you're just going to select Go. And I am going to stop my video so I am not blocking anything. So I am signed in right now as a supervisor. There are 3 dashboards in CANS. There is a supervisor dashboard, which you're looking at. There's a caseworker dashboard, and then there's a non-case caring worker dashboard. So right now, this is the supervisor dashboard. I am an Alpine County supervisor, and I will let everyone on the call know this is all fictitious data. This is our training environment, and this environment is also available to you in your county if you would like the training environment to train your own staff. You just need to contact us. The information on this training in the training environment refreshes twice a day. So it's great for training purposes. So throughout this tool, what you're going to see is info tips. It's very hard to get lost in this tool. We tell you what everything is. So let's go to this reassessments due. So this is the count of clients that have a reassessment coming due in 30 days or less. And then you'll have what's past due, right? So every info tip is going to tell you what the column is. So let's go into my caseworker 1. And this is what the caseworker's dashboard looks like. So as a supervisor, I'm able to drill down, and I see that my worker 1 has 11 clients. 7 of those clients do not have a CANS yet. 2 are in progress, and 2 are complete. Here's my workers' county, phone, and email. And I go down to their dashboard. So here's their clients. So I can see they've got this one in progress, this one in progress. They've got one that's completed, but it's also past due. So it's going to need a reassessment. So we'll start a new one. We'll go to Victor. And I open up Victor, and I have his basic information up here. And I simply go to the Add CANS button and hit Add CANS. It's going to default to today's date. However, this date picker can be modified. Maybe I am starting a draft today before a CFT, and maybe I have my CFT in a few days, and I'm not really going to complete this until the 14th. So I can change the date to align with that final completion date. And you'll see, you'll see on the screen, all I have right now is this first tile. It's making it so you have to pick the right age template before the assessment will populate, because we want to make sure that you're picking the right age template. So if I don't remember how old Victor is, here's his age, his date of birth. I don't need to go look in a file. I don't need to look anywhere for that information. I select 6 to 21, and then you see that the assessment is populated below. On this first tile, you'll see there's asterisks. Those are all required. The computer remembers me. And today I will be a social worker. And then it's going to ask me 2 questions. So this is the caregiver question, and it's asking me if this child or youth has a caregiver. Now this defaults to yes, because typically a child does have a caregiver. There are a few situations where a child might not have a primary caregiver at the time. If I select no, it's just going to say, hey, you're about to remove the caregiver. If I do that, what that's going to do is it's going to remove this entire domain down here, okay? So we'll leave it as it is right now. Then there is the release of information on file. This release is specific to some confidential substance use disorder items. And many times I've been asked, well, where's the release? Well, your county may have its own release, but also if you go to the ACL-21-27, you will see that there is a hyperlink for a sample release of information that CDSS has provided for you. So you can look at that too. So let's say I do have my authorization. I select yes, the message goes away. So now I'm ready to start my assessment. What you see here are domains. So we have these domains. We have a little progress bar that's going to show us you know, how many of the ratings we have entered. Why this is important is no matter how many times I've done an assessment, I'll think I've done every rating, and maybe I'll have missed one. The complete button is not going to light up unless you have entered every rating. And again, so we'll look at this first domain, and you'll see another info tip. What is this domain about? So this is the behavioral and emotional needs domain. And I go over to the arrow and I can open it. So here are what we call items. So items live in domains. So here's my emotional and behavioral health items. Let's go in and look at one. Maybe I'm a newish social worker, or I haven't really, you know, I learned about ADHD, you know, back in graduate school, so I want more information. I open it and I get a complete item description, and this comes from the DSM-5. So I can read that to sort of give myself a little information about what I'm looking at. And then it also gives the user questions to consider. So is the child youth unable to sit for a certain length of time? Do they have trouble paying attention? So when I go down here and I give the child a rating, I'm a little bit more informed. Now the ratings are from 0 to 3. 0 is no current need, and then 3 is requires immediate and intensive action. So let's give Victor a 2, so I can rate him here. And then in every item, I have a 250 character comment box. So I'm going to say, can't sit still in class. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close that. And you can see here, the 2 rating is here. I could have just done it there if I wanted to as well. But it also is telling me, look, there's a note on this item. So that's helpful. So what I can do now is I can just go in and look at them, or I can just, if I know clinically how I want to rate a child, I can do that, and I can just go down and fill in the ratings. Now, I've been asked, Julie, what are these discretion needed boxes? Well, Therefore, when you're sharing a draft in a public forum, which may be a child family team meeting, right? So maybe I've started this as a draft and I want to print it out, but there are certain things that I don't want to share in a public forum, maybe, you know, to protect the child's privacy. And so what this is going to do is it's going to allow me, when I print, to redact that. So I want to show you a feature here. So I'm going to purposely try to print right now and not save. It's not going to let me. This will not let you leave the page if you have not saved. So it's saying, you save your changes, Julie. So I'm going to save my changes. Now it's going to say, okay, now you can print. So I'm going to say, you know what? Redact all confidential and discretion needed comments. And you see that the draft comes up. So this says draft. This is really good when you go into a CFT as well, because you're letting the family know that this is a tool that we're using together. This isn't something that I did all the ratings. We're really going to talk about some of these, you know, different issues and ratings while you're here. So now I've got discretion needed, and when it comes to impulsivity and hyperactivity, it says use discretion. It doesn't populate what the score is. Okay. So I'm going to go down then to the end of this entire domain, and now I have a 2,500 character comment box. So I can say needs mental health referral and write a whole summary. What the feedback I've been given by different counties is that they really like this large comment area because they share their cans with their supervisors, and the supervisors are then allowed to get a lot of additional information just by reading the cans. So let's go back to caseworker 1. Oh, see, it's saying save your changes. Will do. And now you'll see that it's in progress. A couple other features I want to show you before we go to the reassessment is, let's open Alexander. Alexander has an in-progress CANS. And I want to know who has been working on his assessment, right? So view change log. Everyone has a change log. You can find out who the worker was who was in here, what time they were in here, and what kind of change that they made. So I saved it. And maybe I put this in error. Maybe I didn't mean to start this child, right? So anytime a CANS is still in progress, you have the ability to delete it. So I can say, oh, wow, I didn't want to do that. I give a reason, entered an error, and I delete it. Now you're going to see a little trash can, and you're going to be able to also see who deleted it. Okay, here's your information. So let's go down to McCormick. He has one completed, but is past due for the reassessment. So here's his first completed CANS, and then again, simple, add reassessment. Now you're going to be given this message. This is a really great feature. You know, CWIS regulations say basically you shouldn't create things that make workers do a lot of duplicative work, right? But they all also say you need to prompt workers to review their work. So I think working with the state, many conversations we've all had, we came to kind of a happy medium. So for your reassessment, you can start new. And maybe if this child is new to me and I'm a clinician and I want to do my own ratings, maybe I want to start fresh and see what my ratings are. But maybe, you know, I've worked with this child for a couple of years and I know them really well and I know where they've made some changes and where things have kind of stayed the same. And so I can bring over their previous ratings from their last assessment. So if you look down here, you can see everything's filled in. These are all the prior ratings, and these are open to review buttons. So that's that prompt, right, to look at your work. The only thing that doesn't come over is the name, because it could be a new assessor, right? It could have or transferred social workers in that 6-month period of time. And then the other thing to note, it's not applicable in this case, but let's say you had a child who switched, turned 6 and switched templates between the last assessment. So the common domain items from the 0 to 5 will carry over to the 6 to 21. You'll still have some to fill in though that aren't there. So with the reassessment, I'm just going in and I'm opening to review. You'll see the gray shading behind each of the numbers. This is a visual tool for the user. So if I'm going in and I'm making changes, and let's say I change that to a 1, and then I'm going down here and I'm changing that to a 0, and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, where did I make my changes? Well, you can see the old score has the gray shading, and then you have the new score. So that's just a visual tool. The comments from the last assessment will not come over. The idea is this is a reassessment and there should be some new, fresh progress notes. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to open and review. And I'm going to make my changes. I might make a few notes. And then I'm going to go to the next one and I'm going to open and review. Make my changes, notes, open review, no changes, open review, make one change, open and review. Now here for this one, we're at the caregiver resources and needs domain. So the last assessment, the mother was the caregiver. Well, let's say that between then and now, the child has now moved to his aunt's home. So if you scroll down, you have the ability to remove and add caregivers, and you can have up to 4 caregivers that you can do ratings on if you want. So let's remove this caregiver, and it's going to say, are you sure? I'm going to say yes. So that caregiver is gone. Me jump to the top, I can do that with this arrow, and I can say, no, actually they do have a caregiver. So now I'm going to go back down. Sorry for all the scrolling. And now I'm at the caregiver domain, and it's going to say the caregiver name is required. So I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to put in, now with Jane Smith, the maternal grandmother. Well, here's the old caregiver, but we'll say grandma is stellar, and we'll give her all strength. So we filled in grandma. So we've done that. So now we have the new caregiver in. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the trauma items, which comes from the adverse childhood experiences. These typically remain static because they're major traumas that have happened in the life of the child. So you sort of hope nothing's happened in the last 6 months. But you could maybe make some notes about their therapy and how things are going addressing their trauma. And then I get to the bottom and I just confirm. I make this affirmative statement. I have reviewed these reassessment ratings and I've made the necessary adjustments. I'm just going to check that and I'm going to hit complete. I'm going to be given this screen. At this point, I can save changes and return to the assessment. Maybe I'm not ready to totally complete it yet. Maybe my supervisor wants to look at it before I complete it. Or if I do complete it now, the thing to know about this is once you complete it, you will only have a 7-day edit window to go back in and make small edits. After that, it becomes a read-only document. So I'm going to complete it. And then I'm going to get a success banner up here. And then I'm going to get a CAN summary. So I don't need to know, I don't need to go through the assessment and figure out for myself what they scored. So here's all of our strengths. And here's the action required. Now I want to point out this column because this includes the #1 ratings from the behavioral and emotional domain. And then it includes all of the 2 ratings from all the other needs domains. Now the reason it has the 1 from the behavioral and emotional domain is that if you're going to use the CANS as your primary mental health screening tool in your county, if you have a 1 in this domain, that triggers a mental health referral. So that is built in for you. With this child, we don't have any 3s, so we don't have any anything dangerous or disabling at this time. And then we have the trauma score. This summary prints out when you print your CANs, it is the last page and it comes out in a really nice grid that I think is a terrific cheat sheet to take with you to a CFT meeting. So the last feature I'd like to show you is now we have a couple of assessments on Clemens-McCormick, and I can look at it in this view, but we have a compare over time feature. So I can compare up to the last 5 assessments and see where he has made progress. So I can open this domain and I can see by the arrows where a rating has gone up or 1 has gone down. And I can do this for each one. So I can do that for the last 5. And then if I'm more visual, I can look at this in a graph. It gives me the dates, and you can also print the graph if you wanted to take that to a meeting to share with a family the progress that has been made. So that's a really nice feature to be able to compare over time. All right. So I think that is about it. That's a very sort of high level view. I'm open to any questions anyone has at this point in time.
Hi, Julie. Thanks so much for that. I'm looking through the questions. I don't necessarily see any directly pertaining to this right at this moment, but I could have missed one and I'm going back over. So as we approach the end of the presentation, we will call you back in for some additional Q&A if needed.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will stop sharing.
All right, thanks again, Julie. I appreciate that. And we're going to move forward with CANS data overview and reports with Tom Flamson from the Research Automation and Data Division with CDSS, and myself with the Integrated Services Unit at CDSS. Thanks so much.
So thanks, Robin. Yeah, so today I'm just going to introduce you a little bit to what you will get after entering all this into CARES. What we do is every month we at RAD prepare an extract of the last 2 years of CANS data at the client level, actually at the assessment level. So many clients will have multiple entries. So we prepare a monthly data file that has this client level info. It is all of the CANS and the CANS EC data for the past 24 months. So that includes entries that are still in progress and those that are completed and those that have been deleted. And usually when they're deleted, there's a reason why included there. Pardon me. And then in addition, if the counties have been, if staff in that county have been using the comments fields, there's a second data file we send out every month that has the comments that have been included for the last 2 years of CANS. And that is a very complex array of columns and rows. So we also provide you with a data dictionary that'll help you see and understand what the data you're receiving looks like. So if we can move next. Sorry, next slide. Right, and then I'll share a screen here. Okay. So here we see the first tab of the data dictionary. So this file you'll receive shows you what each of the variables in the data looks is describing. So we have the actual variable names here, first name, middle name, so forth, the client information. And this data dictionary will tell you what to make of that, what this client ID code is referring to, what county it is, and so forth. This is a relatively small bit of data. The big tabs are the CANS and the CANS EC that come with each. And these are going to be the actual results from those or entries from previous CANS assessments. So these will have the client ID as well as the assessment ID, so you can put each assessment with the right clients. The information about the assessment date, which is the actual date the assessment is performed. There's a couple other fields at the far end of the files that have other dates and times, and those are more data entry data that are there more for supervision, auditing purposes. But the assessment data is the one that actually counts in terms of doing these assessments in a timely manner. There's also a field noting whether it was initial or subsequent. I believe at some point there might be a change to also include a discharge or sort of exit interview entry, but I don't think we have those yet. And then it goes through these series of questions. So each of the CANS items in this data dictionary, you have a description of the question number as it's seen in the data file, the actual label for the item of what it's describing on the CANS form, and then information about what domain it goes in and what the responses indicate. So this is going to be helpful for going back and reviewing CANS data, because if you just look at the data files themselves, you're just going to see these CANS Q01, CANS Q02, and kind of be lost. Get down to the very bottom here. One other aspect of CANs that's going to be important to be aware of when you start receiving data extracts is that the form lets you collect data about up to 4 caregivers. And then when that data is entered into CANs, we tag it as caregiver A, caregiver B, C, and D. And then in the data file, you'll see it with a field denoting caregiver A and that caregiver's name, and then the responses caregiver A gave, or the evaluations for caregiver A. And then you'll see caregiver B and the evaluations for caregiver B, and so forth. And then there's also the trauma module. And this is sort of a presence or absence, denoting whether or not a traumatic experience of some kind has happened in their past. So that's not going to be as dynamic as the CANS assessments, as the rest of the CANS assessments. And then finally, a bit more additional information is at the end of these, telling you things about the person who administered the CANs and what their role is. So there's I believe it's a pull-down menu that lets you select which kind of staff member's role is involved in the person who administering this CANs. And then, yeah, things about their status, whether it's completed or in progress, and the deletion reason. The CANS EC is basically the same as CANS, it's just a slightly different set of questions. There's fewer questions on the early childhood CANs, and pardon me, and a number of but the trauma elements are the same on both systems. And then finally, there's the comments file that you'll receive if the comments are being used. And in the comments file, there are only entries for assessments where a comment was entered. So these you'll track by the assessment ID that's tied to a specific client in the other file. And then this will give you both comments that have been made at the domain level and comments that have been made more at the item level. Yes, so that goes through them all. So now let me switch over to show you some samples. So these are all artificial data. I made up client IDs and case numbers and counties and everything. So don't worry about what you're seeing. So this is what the data file will actually look like. You'll receive the first file that has the client's name, ID, and some broader information. And then if they are 6 or older, they'll be doing a CANS. And so you'll find their CANS assessments in here with the individual instance of the assessment is identified. And that identification, that ID is assigned sequentially. So you can actually always just sort by assessment ID to get them in the order they were administered. And this will give you the details for each item, and you can find some that change and some that don't. Similarly, there will be, for those who are 5 or under, there will be the CANS EC results, which are, again, basically the same, just a slightly different setup of the questions. And then finally, if there are comments, you'll receive something like this that will have the assessment ID. I should note the comments file doesn't include the client ID as a means of trying to help maintain privacy concerns, because it's the information you'll get will actually be free text files, fields that can have a lot of personal information about the person that was the subject of that assessment. All right, so that's what the data looks like. And we'll switch back to the slides. Oh, I release, I think that's. All right, so now the way you receive this data is we send it every month, usually around the middle of the month, via secure file transfer protocol, an SFTP system. Currently, we have 25 counties that have been entering data into CARES that we're able to process and produce monthly files for, and currently only 14 of those counties are receiving it. In order to receive your data, you need to set up a secure file transfer account by submitting a 1321 form to the email address there, CWS data. We'll also include that at the end of the whole thing. Next slide. So these counties are the ones that we have data for. There's actually a few other counties that had some data older than 2 years ago that I believe were sort of piloting, but then didn't continue. So they have stopped receiving files. But generally speaking, we've been adding more counties receiving files as more people have been implementing CANs. If you see your name here and you haven't seen your data yet, please do email cwsdata@dss.ca.gov to set up that transfer. I'll leave it up there for a sec for people to look it over. And we can probably move on. So some things you can do soon after receiving this, basically with the data processing abilities that Excel provides, is you can start doing things like looking at the timeliness of CAN's assessments, whether they're happening every 6 months or if there's a bigger time distance between them. And I want to take this opportunity to make a plea I've been making everywhere. So we're trying to get up to what we should be in terms of the mandate for all foster care kids to get a mental health screening at intake and then annually thereafter. I believe that's ACL-21-27 that requires this for all the kids. And from the data we have in CWS CMS, we have about a 50% screening rate. Now we've been working on this, we've been working with DHCS to understand it better, but a big chunk of the missing 50% of the screenings, we believe are actually screenings that are being done, they're just not being entered in CWS CMS to mark that they were done. And now that CANS is used as a mental health screening, when you enter your CANS data into CARES Live, please quickly hop over to CWS CMS and just put in the date and the result of the screening so that we can keep that data for seeing how well we're complying with that mandate. Okay, moving back to what we do with the data, you can also see, as I pointed out, you can see if client scores are improving over time. You can make aggregates based on different kinds of subpopulations. So for example, if you have CSEC clients and you want to see how if there's any particular types of CANS trends for CSEC clients, that would be a good way to make use of this data. You can also look in terms of the facility types. If you pair this information about your assessments with the information you have about where the clients are being placed. And you can look, we'd recommend more at the domain level for county level trends to see if things are improving or having some troubles at the county level, sort of on broader scopes than just individuals. And again, that's the kind of thing you'd want to look at more in terms of domains than individual items because of the specificity of the individual items. And next slide. And that's me. Okay.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, we've actually already had some questions in here in regards to safe measures. So I'm here to answer some of them right now. Again, my name is Robin Palmer with CDSS, the California Department of Social Services. And evident change or safe measures, we are in the process of developing reports for CANs. Very exciting. We're hoping that we'll have timeliness reports in about 6 months or less. We have had methodology kind of completed for those, and we're moving forward with them. Right now I'm going to go over the next 3 slides that'll have examples of what the timeliness reports could look like within safe measures. These are actually examples from, I believe, Virginia, who is also using safe measures for CANs information. So safe measures was kind enough to share these with us, but this does not have any identifying information and are just examples. So I just want to preface that, but so far they will be, they appear to be somewhat similar to what we are in process of developing. This first one here shows a graph to show timeliness data over time. You can see that there's a line graph here. Also, it goes into a bit more detail down here at the bottom, and then has the pie chart. In addition, each county will have access to their own data and will have the ability to drill down to individual programs, units, and caseloads. That is one of our requests as well. This next one here is a bar graph to show CAN's upcoming status. So it has kind of due within 30 days, due within 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days, and 91 and over days. And then there's also a category for overdue. We are going to have some similar requests in ours, although we've also entered a lower thing, kind of due within a week a time frame. And the final example here is a crosstab to show the current and not current and pending CANs. So you can see it's kind of just a yes, no, whether or not CANs are current or not current, and if there are any pending ones, and then the total number. And I know we've had a couple questions, data related, come through already. Let me see. There was a, will there be safe measures reports for CANs? I believe I've answered that, but there is also another question. Will CANs activate, give credit for the mental health screening and SDM strengths and needs assessments and safe measures? At this point, we haven't developed that report, but it's a great suggestion and we'll take it to the team. But unfortunately, at this point, we can't say yes or no, but we'll definitely take it to the team and appreciate the suggestion. And I'm just looking quickly to see if I see any. There's a question here. Will business objects work with CARES CANs? I don't know if that's a Tom or Julie question. Are you either of you able to enter or answer that? All right, as we wait on that, there's a new question. In safe measures, how often will data refresh? They will be getting a daily data push. When everything's enacted. So generally speaking, it'll be the same as what it is currently with CWS, CMS, and SDM.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself there. What was the question?
Will business objects work with CARES/CANs?
Right. I don't actually, I can't say for certain whether business objects will be able to directly pull from CARES Live. I'm not sure who would be able to answer that. But you should be able to import the CANs data into business objects and then work with it there. It'll be coming in an Excel file format, so it should be pretty easy to import.
Thank you. And I see, I think it looks like Julie's unmuted as well. And I see a question here for you, Julie. If our county uses a more robust CANs than the state requires, will CARES allow for entry of other modules?
Yeah, that is a good question and something we've talked about for further development when we are building actually the CARES system. We do know that there are counties that use different modules. I believe the reason we, well, not we, but the state came up with the 50 questions and the trauma items was to not make it too overwhelming from the get-go. But I foresee in the future being able to pick and choose modules based on what your county wants. But again, that'll probably be part of the bigger CARES build in the future.
Great, thanks, Julie. So I'm just looking over the questions one more time. Okay, we'll move forward, and as more questions come in, we will still continue to address them in our Q&A, which is coming up here. And now we're going to move forward with Leslie Ann Hay. She's going to be going over the CFT and CANS implementation support toolkit that's on the CalSWEC website.
Leslie Ann might need to be unmuted.
Thank you. I was
Oh.
shouting out to say, unlock my mic. So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Leslie Ann Hay. I'm a consultant with the Child and Family Policy Institute of California, and have been working with the CFT CAN statewide implementation team since the beginning, since about 2018. So I'm really happy to be here today. And what I'm hoping to do is kind of our last segment before we open it up to all kinds of questions about our content here today. But part of the ACL also referenced the existence of a CFT CAN's implementation support toolkit that Lisa talked about earlier. And I wanted to just give you all kind of a brief tour of that toolkit today and kind of orient you to what is contained in that resource. So with that, I'm going to attempt here to share my screen and get that up and running here so you guys can all see me kind of walking through this. And I did want to point out that I think you all got an agenda for today's webinar, and the link to this toolkit is contained in that agenda. So feel free to take a look on your own as well. But I'm just going to start here on the CalSWEC website. Our partners at CalSWEC were kind enough to host this implementation support toolkit for our CANS informed CFT practice. And so I'm starting here on the CalSWEC website, and there's a real quick way here to just get to all of the toolkits. If you scroll down to the bottom here, and they have all kinds of toolkits around practice in many areas of child welfare primarily, but also interagency practices that we're working with our partners in behavioral health and juvenile probation and other systems as well. So, you know, our folks in child welfare may be more familiar with the CalSWEC website, but we're sort of trying to begin to utilize this portal as a way to get all kinds of information to more of our interagency partners as well. So I'm going to go right here. These are all listed alphabetically. So here's our CFT CANS implementation support toolkit, and it gives a little blurb. It's really a place to where we've used our time with the statewide implementation team and all of the stakeholders that are involved in that group to really start to build a place where we could house many of the resources and tools that really will help support county teams to strengthen and deepen their full implementation of CANS informed CFT practice. You know, today we've been talking a lot about CARES and about the data side of things and about the expectations on this most recent ACL. But we're working on this site to be kind of a place where all of the different aspects of implementation of this practice can be a resource for helping counties support that work. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the toolkit itself, and that'll bring us to the landing page for the toolkit. And you can see here that it's kind of structured to give you some background information around you know, why this practice cornerstone for our work with children and families is so important, and the fact that it really does rely on a cross-system collaboration between you know, our placing agencies of child welfare or juvenile probation and our partners in behavioral health. We've got a link here to the System of Care website for even more context and background around that approach to, you know, trauma-informed and integrated core practice services for the children and families that we serve collaboratively. And this goes into some benefits for children and families of us working in this collaborative way together, and just gives more background around that. But the real purpose of this website is really to support local implementation planning teams to work together on, you know, taking your practice from wherever it is in your county today to a deeper, stronger practice over time. You know, implementation is as you all know, not really a turnkey kind of activity. It really takes some effort and collaboration and leadership over time. So we've really tried to structure this toolkit around some of the main drivers of what we know about quality implementation. And that really has to do with building your capacity around various domains of implementation support. And those are things like, you know, organization and leadership, making sure that you've got the organizational climate and culture in place, and the commitment of your leadership to really work toward, you know, fully implementing a CANS-informed kind of teaming environment with your CFTs, including your partners. And then, of course, always building the capacity of the workforce and the skills and attitudes and competencies to be able to do all of this work effectively. You know, CANS-informed CFT work is unique too in terms of the fact that there's no single agency that can fully implement this practice by themselves. It really requires reliance on behavioral health, and probation is also reliant on partners to make sure that that teaming is happening as we anticipate. So strengthening our partnerships around that work is really important for that cross-system collaboration. And then finally, like we've been talking a lot about today, really using data for understanding and improvement. So, you know, how do we set up your environment in such a way that is really ready to embrace that and move that forward? So with those sort of domains in mind, we've then got sort of two areas of the toolkit that contain lots of great resources for you to utilize. One is this CFT CANS implementation planning materials. And that's really a way to get some resources and templates in place that really helps your interagency planning groups, you know, at your leadership level locally, who are trying to come together to be able to make this practice move forward in your location, to really think through what's happening for you in your organizations and systems. Where are the strengths? Where are the barriers to implementation? How do you want to address some of those barriers? And how do you put some plans in place to be able to move that forward? And again, it's almost like having a case plan for the organization, if you will, to make sure that this work gets in place as intended. And then the second area is around a whole host of tools and resources that we're really just beginning to collect and house on this site, that we'll walk through a little in a few minutes here to show you, you know, what are some of the ways that you can utilize some of those tools to really support full implementation of this interagency practice. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the implementation planning materials, which takes us to another page on the site here, where you'll see three main tools here that will be helpful to you. And some of you may have utilized these already, but we spent some time developing an implementation planning guide. Most of you are down the road with implementation of CANS-informed CFT practice in your locations, but I think everybody's at a different place. And so a lot of times it's helpful to, you know, step back and sort of take a look at where are we still, you know, needing some more effort to put maybe some of these data elements in place. You've got the practice down pat, but you really want to be able to evaluate this more effectively in your location. Or maybe you've had a lot of staff turnover and you really want to revamp the skills and abilities of your workforce. So that's in training and development is an area of your efforts that you want to kind of reinvigorate. So this implementation planning guide just really kind of gives you know, some guidance for your local implementation planning teams, and it's really focused on kind of an interagency viewpoint of this to really help you come together across systems to really identify what are our priorities for our location, what are some of the barriers we need to tackle to move this practice forward more effectively, and what are some of the strengths of our practice that we want to hang on to and continue to maintain. So it's really a step-by-step process that goes along with a couple of different templates that will help guide your team through being able to, create an implementation plan for yourself, really, around whatever planning horizon makes sense to you, that will begin to move this practice forward for you. And so the couple of different templates that go along with the guide have to do with kind of a self-assessment tool. This is a tool that you can download in Word and adapt to your use, but it really gives you a way to kind of gauge yourselves on these different aspects of those 4 domains that I talked about, organization and leadership, the strength of your partnership, how you're using data and evaluation to track your results, and how is your workforce capacity built around the skills that you need for this practice area. So it's a way to kind of gauge yourselves on that, draw some conclusions about it, and it helps guide you toward the kinds of implementation priorities that you may want to focus on in your area, in your location, based on what's happening for your staff and your organization and your environment and your clientele. And then once you get that assessment information, there's a companion implementation plan template that is also available that you can download. And this really just helps you structure a little action plan for yourselves locally, where you can set up with your collaborative partners the kinds of priorities that you want to set over what kind of time frame, both for CFT priorities and CANS priorities, to move those practices forward. And then set your own sort of implementation planning horizon. Maybe you're looking at the next 3 years, right, that you really want to deepen and strengthen this practice, or maybe over the next year, or maybe you've had a leadership change and you want to revisit where are we headed with all of this, and how do we, sort of reinvigorate our emphasis around this. And so once you set those priorities, you can set up a little action plan for yourself around each one, and really set forth, what is our priority? Maybe it's strengthening the skills of our newer workforce in our location, and we have some implementation objectives around that we want to try and meet, and you can tap into some tools and resources that may be out there in the toolkit or elsewhere to help you do that, and then you can work together to really create a set of action steps and timelines around getting there, and how you might want to monitor your progress toward achievement of those goals. And we have some sort of already crafted implementation objectives here that you can draw from to help guide your goals around this too. So this is just a very adaptable tool that you can take and customize to your use. So those are kind of the tools under the implementation planning material segment. And, these were all tested as well, I wanted to mention, by some 7 counties in the state over a period of time. So we got a lot of great feedback from local teams about making these tools and guidance as meaningful and useful as possible to a planning team that involves more than one system, behavioral health and probation and child welfare. So we'll hope that you'll be able to utilize those. I'm going to now switch over to the tools and resources aspect of the toolkit, and this is really the companion piece to the planning materials, where we've begun to collect and house here just all kinds of support and resource materials that are related to each of these 4 implementation drivers that I talked about. There's some tools around and supports around workforce development, some other things around organization and leadership, still others around strengthening partnerships, and finally some more around data and evaluation. And if my time is I think I still have a few minutes here. I'm going to go through and just highlight a few things in each of these areas to just give you a sense of what's here. In the workforce development segment, this is really where we have contained, you know, kind of a gateway to some of these CANS training curriculum materials and CFT training materials that we've been alluding to today. There's also Fidelity tools in this area and just other general practice supports. So you'll see here that some of the things we saw today, this is a link to that, the CANS training curriculum overview with the different modules that we talked about earlier today, and a little description of each. So, and kind of who should go to each. So it's a nice quick place to get a summary of what those available modules are and how you go about accessing those. We also have a portal here to the actual curricula itself by linking to another area of our CalSWEC website, where you can actually you know, see the requirements there, and you can see the curriculum itself is accessible there as well. So that's a way to just familiarize yourself with what your location might need in terms of accessing those materials. The other thing we have are some Fidelity tools, one for CANS Fidelity and another for CFT Fidelity. And the CANS Fidelity tool is something that our partners at the Parade Foundation have really been working hard on, and have a wonderful kind of inventory tool that is a really behaviorally based kind of tool that really helps staff and supervisors and managers really understand the behaviors and expectations of high quality CANS practice. And so there's a contact here, there's a PowerPoint that kind of goes through a description of what that tool is all about and how it works, and then some contact information for April, who spoke earlier this afternoon, and is the point of contact if your county is interested in implementing that Fidelity tool to kind of sharpen you know, the quality of your CANS practice. April can set you up with how to begin that process in your location. And then another item here that's soon to be posted very soon. It's in the final testing process right now. There's a wonderfully robust child and family teaming Fidelity tool that's being tested right now with the help of some of the regional training academy folks, as well as the statewide implementation team to really help, again, guide in very specific ways what are the expectations behaviorally for staff and supervisors around what needs to happen before, during, and after a child and family team meeting. And it's a really great training and coaching tool to really supplement some of the training that's out there, so that you can really begin to help guide staff around really sharpening their practice as they continue to apply their skills in their day-to-day field work. And we are also soon to be posting here the CFT facilitator training materials as well. So this will be another way to access that material also. In terms of organization leadership, this has primarily been kind of a communications set of tools up until now, and will continue to grow over time. But this is where you can find some really nicely recently updated child and family team brochures that we have been revamped to really include the notion of CANS being a central part of our CFT process in California, and also just general information around what people can expect from a CFT experience. And what this does is link you right to the CDSS website, where all three of these brochures live in all kinds of languages, and they've been updated for specific audiences. So we have a youth version of the brochure, a professional version of the brochure, and a parent version. So depending on your audience, it's kind of tailored to that particular member of the team. But let's just take a quick look at the youth brochure here. You can go right to the latest version and download it from here. It's been really nicely reviewed by our youth advisory folks at CYC and other organizations throughout the state, as well as all kinds of other stakeholders, to help us really make the language more accessible, make it really be reflective of the new direction of practice around integrating CANs into the CFT. Really helps youth understand in very accessible language, you know, what can they expect from a CFT, who's supposed to attend it, you know, what's in it for them, kind of, if you will. And it's got other features here and lifts some images from some of our newly produced video materials that would be a nice complement to this to help orient youth to what CFTs are all about. So so this is there for you know, to be able to download that for your folks locally, and the same with the professional brochures and the brochures targeted for parents as well. Another communication tool that's been updated recently and can access from the toolkit as well is just a one pager on the CANs. This is a great way to just quickly communicate again to a wide array of stakeholders. Just what is the CANs and why are we doing it, and what does it tell us, and how does it inform practice? You know, when is it completed? What are the ratings all about, and what do those mean? And how does the process work in general? So this is another great quick tool to help communicate and not have this process be quite so you know, complex and overwhelming for you know, for our clients and for our staff. So with that, I'm going to return to the toolkit here. And then the final thing, I know many of you have seen this, but we do have a video that's been produced recently, just this year. That's just a 3 or 4 minute wonderful overview video of what is a CFT, how does it work, why do they do them, and it's a very engaging just short video that can be easily accessed right here and aired. It's posted on YouTube, but it's embedded in the CDSS website, and this is a link to get right to that. So feel free to take a look at that at your leisure as well. In terms of strengthening partnerships, at this point, we have mostly information about the development of the interagency memorandum of understanding that all counties are expected to create based on your movement toward really a system of care approach to practice. And so what we have here is both a guide for guiding local teams in how to develop that MOU agreement. What are some considerations to invite your partners to the table and really set out and decide on the terms and agreements that you want to reach of how you're going to work together in this collaborative practice. And then, of course, there's a template here as well that's got kind of boilerplate language for the MOU itself and highlighted all the customizable areas for you to make this be your own document for your own location. And so this template, along with the guide, really helps teams kind of walk through the development and the refinement over time of those MOU agreements to really guide the work. And then finally, you know, our data and evaluation segment here is under development. We've got lots of things that are working, not the least of which is we want to add, following this this webinar, the portal. There's actually a CARES implementation portal that exists on the CDSS website as well, that will help with all kinds of implementation support around getting your CARES Live operations going in your county. If you're maybe a county that hasn't yet embarked on that, there's some great resources there that we'll be linking to this area of the toolkit also. But this also has, you know, a piece that's being worked on by the statewide team at this point is also a logic model, right? If we're going to be, you know, moving toward a data-informed look at how is this practice going in California, not only statewide, but in your local jurisdiction as well, it's great to have a logic model that really, you know, sort of defines the theory of change about why is it we think it's important to have this communimetric tool that everybody is using together to get a good sense of where this child is right now, where their family's strengths and needs are, and their own strengths and needs are, to really plan better around that. And what are the specific outcomes that we think that's going to influence over time, whether that be safety, increased safety, better permanency outcomes, better well-being outcomes for that child and their family. So this is a great tool that's soon to be posted here. It's in its final stages of refinement, to really work with your own data people around this and to your own stakeholders to really bring people together around using data for evaluation purposes. The other thing that is linked here to this segment of the toolkit is a link to a child and family team survey that goes straight to a survey that is maintained by CDSS here that can be shared and used with youth, with family members when they've gone through a CFT process or experience or a meeting. And if they're amenable, it's an option to have them come here and fill out a few questions in this survey format that really gives us some immediate feedback on what worked well for them in that CFT experience, what could have been better, what are some of the things they liked, what are some of the things that could be improved. And so that gives us some aggregate feedback about the practice as a whole that will really help to guide our improvements in the future. So that's another resource that's available there. So with that, that's a very quick and dirty overview of what's in this ever evolving tool here. And I hope that you will check this out on your own time. And we certainly welcome ideas for other tools and resources that you think would help support implementation of this practice that you would like to see added. Our partners at CalSWEC are helping us maintain this site. So any ideas you have, feel free to put them in the question and answer or follow up later with Lisa or Robin and make those suggestions to us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and if I can figure out how to stop sharing, I will turn it back over to Robin.
Thanks so much, Leslie Ann. Appreciate all of the information on the website. And moving forward, we're going to go into our questions and closing. So we did have a number of questions come in, which is fantastic. So I know we'll have to make sure that we have you all unmuted to answer questions. I know Tom and Julia have some questions specifically for both of you. Can you confirm that you're unmuted? Oh, Julie, I see you unmuted.
Yep.
Great, thanks. Okay, Julie, can you please describe the difference between completed past due and reassessment past due within the CARES Live system?
The question is, can I describe the difference between completed? I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Yes, completed past due and reassessment past due. Are those two listed within CARES?
Well, we have completed, which means that it's been completed. Past due, you'll have two different things that come up. 1 month prior to the 6-month date, you'll get a reassessment due reminder that you have a CANS that needs to be done in the next 30 days. And then the reassessment past due is past that 6-month point. But again, those are reassessment reminders. You can do a reassessment at any point in time prior to that.
Great, thanks, Julie. Also, what happens in situations in which the youth has more than 4 caregivers?
As of right now, the CFT needs to decide which 4 caregivers to include in CANS. As far as our data processing capabilities, I believe it's possible to record more data with the system. I'm not sure, but all we are able to process and distribute back is up to 4 caregivers. So I guess if there's a 5th one, you'll need to keep it a paper copy.
Thanks, Tom. Julie, I think this one's for you. Where can one locate the CARES tutorials?
That is on our implementation portal. So I saw that you had on the ACL, I believe it's on page 8, you had the links for CARES. And if you go to the implementation portal, you can go to the quick access button and it will take you to all the job aids and demos.
Thanks, Julie. Tom, when you have the list of counties up, we have the question, what if your county is not part of the group listed?
Sorry, it wasn't letting me unmute myself. Okay. If your county is not listed there, it means you have not been submitting CARES or CANS via CARES Live. So that was all the counties for which we have data that we can prepare and distribute. So if your county was listed there and you haven't been receiving data, we need to set up your SFT. But if your county wasn't even listed there, then we need to start implementing CAN via CARES and set up an SFT.
Thanks, Tom. Julie, if you could speak to the technical aspect, what requirements are there for counties who have behavioral health or outside providers completing the CANs on behalf of child welfare? Well, I can speak to the child welfare is still responsible to ensure that the CANs is being entered into the CARES Live system, and it's determined on any agreements that the county has with the different systems. But Julie, will behavioral health or community-based agencies be given access to CARES or CANs, including SDRTPs or juvenile probation?
Well, that's a question we get all the time, so I'm ready to answer that. I think you addressed part of it. The technical part of it is this. So the information that is pulled into CARES Live is coming from CWS CMS. So in order for someone to get access to CARES Live, they also need to have been granted access to CWS CMS. So what needs to happen in your county is that behavioral health person needs to be given what's called a RAC FID, which is a CWS CMS login. And that way they can then be registered in CARES. But that's the pathway, and our customer relations can certainly walk you through that and help you with that. We've done it before, but really it's a county by county decision as to who you want to give that access to.
Thanks, Julie. Tom, another question for you. In regards to recidivism, when a child's case closes and at a later date a new case is opened, will the data file see the first cans in the new case as another initial, or will it be considered to be a reassessment? Oh, you're muted again, so we got to make sure that you're unmuted. Sorry.
Okay. It should be, so because each assessment gets a novel assessment ID generated, it shouldn't replace anything. I'm not sure how controllable the entry for initial versus subsequent is. It might be that it's automatically marked as subsequent if there's an initial for that client already, or it might be a choice you make. But if we get multiple initials screenings for the same client, we actually haven't had to do any analyses dealing with that yet, but I assume that if we were wanting to do that, we'd run a check to make sure there aren't any erroneous initial things, but it shouldn't impact the data entry.
Great, thanks. And do staff need to be on a CWS computer or a CWS token to access CARES Live?
I don't know.
Julie, do you know the answer to that one?
That is a very technical question, so I'm probably not the one to answer it, but I will take it back to our team.
Okay, great, thank you. And we do intend on answering any questions that we are unable to answer right now on the spot, and we will be sending out an email with the responses as well. So that's something that we'll get back to you all on. Julie, will an administrative dashboard be available on CARES Live anytime soon?
You're asking if a administrator would be able to go on and pull up like their entire office? I'm assuming that's the question, like the administrator has a dashboard of their office. And no, at this time, we don't have that log to build, but I do see something in the future like that. What we do have coming up in our next release is the ability for a supervisor to export their dashboard to make it easier to communicate about what's going on in their unit and to be able to provide that to an administrator. So that is coming up, the ability to export into a PDF.
Thanks, Julie. Okay, how can probation departments enter CANs into CARES Live if the CANs is completed by an STRTP and the youth is not a dependent? Also, is the STRTP required to share the assessment with the probation department?
I think that's more of a policy question. I believe in the ACL, probation is not mandated to do the CANs.
That's correct. Probation is not mandated to complete the CANs, but from a policy standpoint, it would be best practice for them to obtain any CANs that is completed on behalf of a youth that they have in their system so that they can utilize this information to provide services and move forward to help inform the case. So it would be between the county and the STRTP or other outside agency to kind of come up with the manner in which the information is shared, but it would be best practice for that information to be shared and utilized accordingly. And probation departments enter CANs into CARES Live. It seems that probation, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, should have access to CARES Live and can reach out to the CARES team in order to gain access. Is that correct?
Yeah, they already have access to our other two tools, which are Snapshot and Facility Search. So, yes, the answer is yes.
Great. Rebecca, I believe you said that you could answer, is there a date by which CAN should replace the FSNA, or does it take place as counties roll out implementation of CANs in each respective county?
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. What I want to share is that we do not have a hard stop date for access to the FSNA and the CSNA at this time. We are aware that some counties are still using aspects of that for their practice and their case planning. Our intent is that CANs replace both of those, and over time as counties start to phase out the FSNA and CSNA. But we will, once a date has been determined, we will make sure that we give ample time and notice to all of our partners through our partner organizations. I think that, and at this point, we haven't even started talking about a date just yet. You're muted, Robin. You're still muted.
Robin, you're still muted.
Yes, sorry. I don't know. I think I was unmuted by a co-host and then muted myself again as we both clicked at the same time. My apologies. So can the brochure's info sheet be edited by counties to include county-specific information?
I'm sorry, Robin, I missed that. Who was that for?
I think you should be able to answer it, or
can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Can the brochures or info sheet be edited by counties to include county-specific information?
So at this time, no, and apologies for that. It's really because of accessibility requirements that CDSS has to follow. And when we unlock our documents, we lose kind of that of the ability to ensure that they meet the standards, the statewide standards. If a county has a particular interest in having a similar brochure, they can reach out to us to see it up through CWS coordination, and we can work with our graphic designer to help them get the information they need in another format so that they can adapt it to their own local brochure.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. There's a question here on, will CAN certification training be incorporated into Core 3.5?
All right, thank you. We certainly plan on incorporating the CANs because as it's an important aspect of all case planning and the assessment process throughout the life of a case, we want to infuse it into Core 3.5. We have not started on all of that curriculum embedment yet, but we will be working with our training unit to and our curriculum developers to ensure that we have that in the future.
Thanks, Rebecca. It looks like we have some more technical questions coming in. So it might be Tom or Julie. Can we give an RACIF ID without actually giving access to CWS CMS?
I don't know. I think that might actually be like a question for the ISD or something. I don't know what we do with that.
I would suggest that anyone who has those types of questions contacts our customer relations. They're more familiar with the ins and outs of that process.
Thanks, Julie and Tom. Also, can we have separate access privileges so COB staff may have access to CARES Live to input the CANs without granting authorization to CWS CMS?
I think that's kind of the same question as the previous question. It's a matter of privileges. So when you are given a RAC FID, that person on the CWS CMS side is responsible for giving you privileges or not giving you privileges. When you register on CARES Live, you're given privileges as well. Now that is either you can get CANS only, or you can get all three tools, Snapshot, Facility Search, and CANS. So each system has its own set of privileges.
Thanks, Julie. And will counties that have other web applications to upload the CANS automatically transfer into the CARES system?
Tom, do you want to take that, or?
So far as I know, nothing's automatically transferring anywhere yet. There's a lot of great ideas about things that should automatically transfer to other systems, but so far nothing that I'm aware of is doing that. Sorry.
Thanks. We are also having some requests to have a recording of this webinar. If you could email us at cwscoordination@dss.ca.gov. That should be the email that you received that included the PDF of the PowerPoint. It would be that email address. But if you email us there and ask for a recording, we should be able to get you that. We are going to move quickly on it, but we do have to make sure that it passes accessibility before we can share it. So there may be a slight delay, but we will get it to you as soon as possible. When will the training modules be available? How can we access them? I believe that's the CANS training modules. April, I don't know if you're unmuted or if you want to speak to that.
Well, the training modules have been available. They're not available right now on the CalSWEC website because they're being remediated for ADA purposes. So once those are remediated, they will be available once again.
Thanks, April.
Sure.
Who is taking the lead keeping the Judicial Council up to date regarding the CARES project? Okay, Tom, it looked like you were maybe going to speak.
Oh, sorry, no, I don't know anything about that.
It's who is taking the lead keeping the Judicial Council up to date on the CARES project? No, it's a great question, and we'll follow back up around on it. I did just notice the time. It is 2:59, and we scheduled till 3 o'clock. So I wanted to thank everyone so much for your time and for joining us today. If you have any questions or you need anything, please email us at cwscoordination@dss.ca.gov. And that's in regards to the ACL, and we also have a list of contact information that I'll leave up for a few minutes here, so anyone can jot that down. Also, you can email us at this top email address if you did not receive a copy of the PDF PowerPoint due to some of the email addresses coming back as unable to be delivered. So if you email us or if you registered for the webinar after we had sent it out. So please email us if you did not receive it and you would like a copy. And thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate you.